25 years of CNBC TV18 in India. This financial and business news channel has been closely connected with the India growth story. India today is being wooed by global multilateral institutions, the West, because it can be a strong manufacturing destination and an alternative to China. So how does the IMF view India at this juncture? Joining us right now is the Director of the Asia and Pacific Departments at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, Krishna Srinivasan. Krishna, thank you so much for coming by all the way from Singapore for our Global Leadership Summit. What do you feel about this moment for India? Currently, we're in a very volatile geopolitical environment. How are things set up for India?
So we have India growing at 7% this year. It was 8.2% last year. And then we have India growing, it's slowing down growth at 6.5% next year. And this is still the fastest growing major economy in the world. At this point in time, we think we are pretty comfortable with the way with our forecast for this year. There have been some indicators which have slowed down recently, and inflation has bumped up a bit more. But that said, overall the fundamentals for India look pretty good in terms of growth, in terms of inflation coming down, the fiscal and external position.
The big theme in India right now and for the government is how can India become a developed economy by 2047. To get that, we need a sustained run rate of 7 to 8% growth every year till 2047. Are we in a position to do that right now?
So again, these numbers, Parikshit, vary quite a bit. Depending upon how you define an advanced country, the numbers could be as high as 10%. So 8 to 10% is what you would be needing to be an advanced economy by 2047, depending on whether you use the World Bank definition or the IMF ranking of countries which are on the advanced list. So I think to get there, this is a good aspiration to have. Right now we have growth at 6.5% over the medium term, which means you have to bump up growth a lot more and sustain that over many, many years. And that's not easy. That said, a lot of reforms can be done, which are important, which, for instance, you could start with the reform of the labor codes. These have to be implemented. You have to do more in terms of liberalization of trade. Beyond that, you have to think in terms of skilling and the workforce, improving the talent of India's labor force. All these are important, and to maintain that over many years. In addition, I would say that going forward, infrastructure, maintaining the impetus on infrastructure, I think that's very, very important. Reforming the agriculture sector, reforming land reforms are important. I think it's important that India is in a position to scale up activity. If you look at what's happened in terms of structural transformation, India still has, in terms of how many people are there in the manufacturing, employment share is still pretty low compared to other countries. So productivity has to go up a lot. And for that, you need a lot of these measures or these reforms, which have to go hand in glove. It's not one or the other. And I think many of these reforms are at the state level, some are at the central level. So there should be more coordination, some of a compact between center and state and subnational governments to have these reforms in place so that India can aspire for that growth rate.
Right. Looking at the changes in the White House, Donald Trump has not wasted any time in putting together his cabinet. There are China hawks in the cabinet. There is Elon Musk heading the Department of Government Efficiency. Do you think bodies like the IMF and World Bank will have to get back to the drawing board as far as the global outlook is concerned after what's happened in the White House?
So we'll have to wait and see in terms of what are the policies. What I talked about in terms of our growth forecasts and on forecast for India, it's all based on policies we know right now. So once the new administration in the US takes over and announces policies, and other countries also will want to respond to the policies announced by the US administration. So you are going to see changes in policies, and based on that, we will revise our outlook going forward. But at this point in time, we are where we are with our growth forecasts.
Right. A US-China trade war, if Trump lives up to his promise of imposing 60% tariffs on all Chinese products, how will that hurt the global economy? And will that be a benefit for India?
So I don't want to get into specific numbers because we have to wait and see how these policies are, what rates are announced in terms. But what we have said is the risk of geoeconomic fragmentation has been there for some time. If you look at in 2019, you had 1,000 trade restrictive measures. In 2023, that's 3,000. So 3 times in 4 years. And we have talked about the fact that geoeconomic fragmentation can have a significant impact on growth outlook for everyone. And we've said that in the long run, everybody hurts, including countries in Asia, including countries like India. So we'll have to, work towards making sure that these risks don't materialize, or how you have guardrails around those.
And my final question, what do you think is going for India? What makes you excited about the Indian economy? And what can bring in more manufacturing? Do you think we need to be more open as a country, more open to trade, bring down barriers?
I think it's a combination of reforms. Like I said, if you look at over the last 30 years, the share of employment in manufacturing has pretty much stayed the same in India. And why is that? It's a combination of factors. In terms of, you have to implement the labor codes, make the markets more flexible, labor market more flexible, so that firms can scale up. I mean, you can't compete in the world without scaling up, so that's important. So and that is linked to also trade liberalization. If you import at a much higher cost, you're not going to be competitive when you try to export that out. So it's a combination of reforms of labor codes, trade liberalization, infrastructure, keep the impetus on infrastructure, and the other reforms I talked about, skilling of labor and so on, and not just manufacturing. Over a period of time, India has become a big force in services. And for all of this, it's something which reforms have to come together. And there needs to be what I would say, a way by which you have agreement between center and state and subnational, so that these reforms can happen quickly.
Thank you so much for joining us, Krishna Srinivasan, for our Global Leadership Summit. It's going to be an exciting day.